Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list starts a whole new series. I finished the series where I showed my top 10 slash 30 notes, actually 32 notes, from the top 100. The thing is, those aren't necessarily my most expensive notes. I didn't discuss price with those notes very much. I simply told you how many were available. So that got me thinking, what are my top 10 most expensive notes? And I did a top 10. Initially, a few years ago, I did a top 20 a few years back. My collection's grown, and sometimes even I'm surprised what is not included. So this time, I pulled out the top 30 most expensive notes in my collection, and even then, I couldn't narrow it down. So I actually have three honorable mentions to put in there as well. So this week we're doing notes 30 through 21 plus the honorable mentions. Next week we'll do notes 20 to 11, and then the following week we will do the top 10 most expensive notes in my collection. I've got some notes written down on these, and so if I have to do some back and forth, so be it. But without further delay, let's see what I've got. The first honorable mention note, I had to put this one in here. This is my ace. This is the 1875 $1 National. The original series of National notes was 1865. Then in 1875, they redid them to make sure that they had the charter number on there. A bank could request to become a national bank, and the government would send people out there to check their books and make sure that they had the money to cover all their bills. Then they were allowed to put money on deposit with the federal government. The government would then print money with their bank on it, letting everybody know who backed the money. So this is the ace, the $1 bill from the first charter period. And these can get expensive. These can be upwards of $1,000 or so. This particular one is not in the greatest of shape. Very cool imagery on the back as well. That's I want to say that's the landing of the Pilgrims on the back there. Tough to see in this particular picture. But the ace, this one, where do I've got it at? This one in this condition, and that's how I'm doing all of my notes, based on their condition. That's how I'm going to figure the values. In this condition, this one's probably worth about $400. That's why it's just an honorable mention. Honorable mention number 2. This is the $2 well, that's active 1886, but this particular one is, where is it? Let me find it right there. Series of 1891. Series of 1891 $2 silver certificate. This is known as the Windom note. And you can see William Windom. That's who is pictured here. And it is a $2 certificate. I'd call it a small size $2 certificate, but it's not. It's a large size. It's a small denomination. You didn't see silver certificates in the smaller denominations until 1886. There's the back there. It's known as the bow tie on the back, so that's just pretty cool. Take a look at that. You can read the back of it there. Now, the Windom note in this condition, this particular one, I want to say is also going to be in that $400 range for a silver certificate. Yeah, just a cool note that you don't see a whole lot of. I picked this one up pretty cheap just because I hadn't had one of these. I wonder, you can't see because of the damage to the note here, but he's got some serious chops going down here. They actually go all the way down to here. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Anyway, that is the Windom note, $2 note. That is number 32 on my list. Honorable mention number 2. Honorable mention number 3 is from that original 1886 series. It is the Martha Washington note. Martha Washington, 1886 $1 silver certificate. This is the first $1 silver certificate they issued. Prior to this, if you wanted silver certificates, you had to get, I believe $10 was the minimum that you could get for paper, because we had so many silver coins in circulation. There's the back with the full green on there. They later reduced that down so you can see a lot more white to make it harder to counterfeit. The Martha Washington note, this particular one, like I said, number 31. This is honorable mention number 3. This one in this condition is also about 400 bucks at a fine 15. So those are my honorable mentions. Let's get to the real list. Number 30. I have my spinner specimen note. You can see here this one's graded by PCGS. The third issue 50-cent spinner face specimen, and it's choice about new 58 apparent edge tear at bottom left. And if I look, this is what they're talking about. It looks more like it was stapled. I don't really think that that's a tear. That's a staple hole just right at the edge. Anyway, the spinner note, really cool note. It's a specimen. You know that because on the back there is nothing written at all. Normally it would have either the red back or the green back. This one is just the one-sided note. And with the specimen, those are real signatures. You can see both of these actual signatures. A little bit of oxidation there. That's always a good sign for signatures. If you don't have the oxidation, it doesn't mean it's a fake signature, but when you do have the oxidation, it does help the authenticity. This particular spinner note, one other thing I want to point out is this here. On the specimens, this is always pretty good. You can see that the bronze color, this was done in glue, just like this. In this shape, I should say, and then they put bronzing powder over it to give it the bronze look. Really cool note that way. This one, number 30 on the list, and the book on this one is, where did I put it? I gotta check my list. I knew this was gonna be tough. Also in the $400 range, but definitely this one is in the official top 30. Number 29. Here is my Tombstone note. $10 Tombstone note, 10 silver dollars. And if we find the series on this one is also a series of 1891. The Tombstone note features Vice President Hendricks, who died in 1885. He was first put on this note in the 1886 version. This particular one has a red seal. The later versions of this note will have a blue seal on it. The Tombstone note called that because of the shape that was put around the vice president's portrait. Taking a look at the back, you can see they left a lot of white area so that you could zoom in and see the red and blue fibers to authenticate the note. It's always cool when you get to see those fibers. This particular note, in this particular grade, this one is number 29. I didn't send it in to get graded. This one also in that $400 range for the 1891 $10 silver certificate. So that is number 30. This is number 29. Number 28, another fractional currency. This is one of the most famous fractional currencies out there. This is the note that got me started in fractionals. It is the 50-cent fourth issue fractional currency featuring Abraham Lincoln. Now this particular fractional, I want to say came out just after Lincoln's assassination. I want to say 1869-ish. And it was the first note put out after his assassination to feature him on there. So it's a picture that we don't see too often of Lincoln. Very cool picture, and these are just so tiny when you compare them to actual notes. Here's a $50 bill here just for comparison. Yeah, they're just so small. Very cool notes. This particular one, like I said, is the one that got me into fractionals. This one's graded 35 EPQ. Check in the back. Just such a cool design back there. Look at the intricate work. I mean, the note is so small as it is, and then you have to zoom in as tight as you can to try to see all the detail on that note. Very, very impressive. Like I said, this one's got the EPQ designation from PMG. This note, number 28, this one goes for about $425 in this condition. So this one is definitely special for me. Number 27. Number 27. This is my Louisiana, or my New Orleans, Louisiana, $10 obsolete note. This one is from the Citizens Bank of Louisiana. This is the famous Dix note. In French, 10 is D-I-X. And when people went down the Mississippi River in their barges to New Orleans, they wanted to trade everything they had and fill their pockets with a note that they knew that was worth money. And the bank, the Citizens Bank of Louisiana, was a bank they all trusted, so they wanted to get as many of these notes as they could. A really cool picture of the ships up there. And they gave these note nicknames. They called this, because it has this on the back, they called it a Dixie. And where do you go to get Dixies? Dixieland. This is the note that gave the South the nickname Dixieland. And when I did my top notes from the 100, that's when I realized there was only somewhere in the neighborhood of less than 500 of these still out there. So for as few as are out there, this note is dirt cheap. If you don't have one, get one while you can. The Dixie note, this particular one, goes for about 500 bucks. So yeah, that's still cheap for a note that one of only 500 exist. That's only 10 in every state. That's how little that is. All right, so that one is number 27. Number 26. Another national. This is from the second charter period. This one is a $5 brownback. You can see the brownback here. Not in the greatest of shape, but you know something? This is also one of the top 100 notes. When you're collecting brownbacks, and more importantly, nationals, the further east and the larger the city, the less the note will be worth. If you want a particularly rare note, start looking west and look for smaller towns. But if you go east with a big town, then you start to get notes that are a little more affordable. Even with that being said, this $10 national featuring Garfield on it, National Bank of New York City, and there's the charter number 1394. Take a peek at the back. You can see it's got the Eagle for America on this side, and it's got the Seal of New York on this side here, as well as the charter number. Really cool note. And like I said, these aren't that expensive if you get them from a large city out east. They can get much more expensive when you go west. Even so, this particular note is still in the $500 range. So that one is number 26. Number 25. This is from the series of 1928. 1928 $5 note. It is the first series of small size notes. This is the first year that we went from notes this big to notes that were only this big. Everybody's pocket got that much smaller. Anyway, first year $5 note. It's always neat because the 28s have the number here instead of the letter, but this one is a star. Now the star notes were the first round of notes printed. They had to make the star notes first, then they did the regular prints, so that way if there was a problem with the regular prints, they could remove the irregularities and replace them with stars. So they printed the stars first. So this is one of the first small size notes ever done. In the very first year that small size notes were done, they put these giant solid stars on here. Very cool notes to have, especially with them going to be doing away with stars. They already implemented the first process, which is they no longer have to print the notes in order. And with that, that kind of makes it so that stars are no longer needed. Anyway, this particular one, the $5 star note, this one books at about $500 in this particular condition. That one is number 25. Number 24. This is my 1935A silver certificate, part of the experimental notes. In this particular series, they printed, I want to say, 1 million notes. They wanted to check a new version of the coding on notes. Our notes are not paper. Our notes are actually a cotton linen blend, 75-25, I want to say. And it's actually kind of difficult to print on cloth. I mean, look at an old t-shirt. So in order to make it easier to print on notes, they do put a coating on the notes. And they wanted to try a different coating. So they printed, I want to say, 1 million notes with this red S, which had a special coating on it. and then release them into the wild. And at a specific point, they were going to recall all of these notes to compare them and see if their wear was any less. The S note is designating the special coating that's on the note. There is another type of note that is probably going to be a little bit further up on the list, but needless to say, when people saw that red S, they started saving these. They thought these were really interesting and may be worth money sometime. They were right. They were definitely right. Here's the back of that note. Everything about this note is looks exactly like a silver certificate of the time. The only difference was that standout red S. That red S makes this note, where did it go? On my list, the S note is about, in this condition, 64 EPQ, about $550. That's number 24. Number 23. This is the First National Bank of Kenosha National $5 bill. This is my hometown note. I was excited to get a note from a hometown bank. Nationals were done at over 15,000 different banks, so you never know. You may have a national from your hometown. Collecting nationals it can be extremely difficult because of all of the different banks that were out there. But I managed to find one from my hometown. Once again, here's the Landing of the Pilgrims featured on the back of this note. Very cool looking note. This particular one features President Harrison on there. You can see it's 212. Oh, what do you know? The charter numbers are radar. Doesn't mean anything. Anyway, this particular note meant a lot to me because it's my hometown, so I was willing to pay up a little bit for it. I avoided the hometown bump when it come to purchasing this note by telling the dealer, I want the note. When you're ready to sell it at my price, you let me know. And it took over a year, but eventually I was able to get it. So this particular note here, the book value is, it's a 1902 $5 national from Kenosha. This one books out at about $600. So that one is number 20, what is that, number 22? 23. Number 23. Number 22. Here's a monster. This is a $2 Federal Reserve banknote from 1918. Federal Reserve banknote, FRBN, okay? But this one's the $2 note, the $2 note from New York. This one's graded a 20. What's so special about this note? Nothing on the front. It's the back. That's right, this one is the Battleship note. Such a cool image of a battleship. I'm told that's the USS New York on the back, and it is from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York on the front. Very cool having New York and New York on the $2 Battleship. This particular note, when it comes to FRBNs, this is the one everybody's after because of that battleship. Such a cool denomination there. Mine's got minor rust on it. No big deal. This one, number 22 on my list. This one goes for, let's see, 1918 $2 Federal Reserve, about $675 in this condition. And finally this week, number 21, I have my educational note, $1 1896 silver certificate, the educational series. This one grades at a 25, and this one is pretty cool. Doesn't even look like money. The educational series only lasted for 3 years. By 1899, these were taken out of circulation. Many people believe it's because of the nudity on the $5 note. Another reason, though, was because there was so much ink on these that as the tellers would handle them, they would smudge the notes. So, I mean, it was just a very hard way to, well, I wouldn't say hard, but you were just getting your hands filthy handling these notes all day long. That and the nudity, they had no problem pulling these notes after only 3 years. On the back, it features Martha Washington and George Washington. This one also has minor rust on it, grades at a 25, and in that particular condition, this note is going to run roughly $700. So that got us down to number 21. That's what I've got for you this week. If you learned anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.